At the heart of a busy downtown bank, an incident unfolded that would highlight deeply ingrained biases and shake the foundation of its operations. On a seemingly routine day, David Simmons, the white branch manager, encountered Angela Carter, a poised and professional black client who entered the bank carrying a leather briefcase and an air of confidence. Angela approached the counter, presenting a substantial six-figure check for deposit into her account. The young cashier, startled by the amount, quickly directed her to the manager's office, explaining that the transaction required additional oversight. Angela, calm and collected, complied without hesitation. Inside his office, David examined the check with a skeptical expression. His tone curt as he addressed Angela. Despite the thorough documentation she provided, including references to her legal firm, he expressed doubts about the legitimacy of the funds. Verification is standard procedure for sums of this magnitude, he muttered, his demeanor hinting at something beyond routine caution. Angela remained composed, explaining that her business was fully compliant with the law and that the necessary details were included in the check. However, David persisted, suggesting that further evidence was needed to substantiate her claim. His vague insinuations and dismissive attitude hinted at an underlying prejudice rather than genuine procedural concern. As tensions mounted, Angela, unfazed by the insinuations, calmly informed David of her intention to escalate the matter. Meanwhile, staff members, including the young cashier who initially helped Angela, observed the unfolding scene, silently acknowledging the injustice of the situation. This incident, rooted in bias and suspicion, set the stage for a dramatic confrontation that would reveal the true dynamics at play within the institution. As Angela Carter sat in David Simmons's office, the tension was palpable. Angela, calm but resolute, had placed all required documentation in front of the manager, leaving no room for legitimate doubts. Yet, David's demeanor remained cold and dismissive. He scrutinized the check repeatedly, ignoring the obvious legitimacy of the transaction. His voice, though measured, carried an undertone of suspicion. "This is quite a large sum," he said, as though the amount itself was cause for alarm. "I'll need more time to verify its source." Angela, maintaining her professionalism, replied, "Mr. Simmons, all the necessary information is attached, including my legal firm's contact details. I expect this process to move forward without unnecessary delays." Her voice was firm but respectful, making it clear she was not one to be intimidated. The young cashier, Sarah, who had initially helped Angela, couldn't remain silent. She quietly approached David and whispered, "Mr. Simmons, I've seen Miss Carter here before. She's conducted large transactions with our bank in the past. Her account is in good standing." David waved her off dismissively, his tone clipped. "Sarah, you have other tasks to focus on. This isn't your concern." Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she cast a quick, apologetic glance at Angela before retreating. Angela, unfazed, leaned back slightly in her chair, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the growing tension in the room. "If there's an issue with this check, Mr. Simmons, I need you to clarify it. Otherwise, I expect my transaction to be processed." David, growing defensive, responded, "I decide how and when transactions are processed in this branch. If I believe further verification is necessary, that's my prerogative." Angela's expression tightened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Very well," she said, reaching into her bag for her phone. "If you cannot handle this matter professionally, I will escalate it to someone who can." David's face betrayed a flicker of unease as Angela began dialing. "Whoever you call," he said hastily, "they'll tell you the same thing. Verification is required." Angela ignored him, calmly speaking into the phone. "Yes, this is Angela Carter. Please connect me with the leadership team. I'm experiencing an issue at one of your branches regarding a check deposit. It's urgent." As she hung up, Sarah quietly returned, her voice low but insistent. "Mr. Simmons, I truly believe this is a mistake. Miss Carter is a significant client. We've handled similar transactions for her before." David cut her off sharply. "Enough, Sarah. Go back to your work." Angela watched the interaction closely, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. Then she addressed David directly. "Mr. Simmons, I don't appreciate being dismissed or treated with suspicion. Your conduct is not only unprofessional, but also inappropriate. This is my final warning. Resolve this matter, or I will ensure someone else does." At that moment, the office door swung open, and a sharply dressed woman entered, exuding authority. It was Karen Ellis, the regional director. Her eyes scanned the room, quickly taking in the situation. "What's going on here?" she demanded. David, visibly startled, stammered, "Karen, I didn't expect to see you." "This is just a routine verification of a large transaction." Karen's gaze shifted to Angela, softening immediately. "Ms. Carter, I apologize for any inconvenience. Please rest assured this matter will be resolved immediately." She turned to David, her tone icy. "Mr. Simmons, step into my office, now." As Angela waited in the lounge, the air in the branch was heavy with unspoken judgment. She had made her point, and the wheels of accountability were now in motion. As Angela Carter calmly waited in the office, the tension was broken by the arrival of Karen Ellis, the bank's regional director. Dressed sharply and exuding authority, Karen entered the room with a determined stride, her expression a mix of irritation and professionalism. Her eyes swept across the office, quickly assessing the situation. "Mr. Simmons, what is going on here?" Karen demanded, her voice firm. David Simmons, the branch manager, rose from his seat, visibly flustered. "Karen, I wasn't expecting you," he stammered. "This is just a routine verification for a large transaction." Karen's gaze shifted from David to Angela, and in that moment, her demeanor softened. Recognition flashed across her face. "Miss Carter," she said with a hint of surprise, her tone immediately apologetic. "I didn't realize you were here. My sincerest apologies. Has there been a problem?" Angela's calm exterior remained intact. As she replied, "It seems Mr. Simmons has doubts about my transaction, despite all the proper documentation being provided." Karen's expression hardened as she turned back to David. "Mr. Simmons, do you know who you're speaking to?" she asked icily. Without waiting for an answer, she added, "Ms. Carter is not only a valued client, but the largest shareholder of this bank." David froze, his face paling as the weight of his actions dawned on him. Karen wasted no time. "Mrs. Carter, please accept my apologies for this unacceptable treatment. Your transaction will be processed immediately, and I will personally oversee it." As Angela left the office, her gaze lingered on David briefly, her composure unwavering. Karen's sharp tone followed as she addressed the stunned manager. "We need to have a serious conversation now." Karen Ellis, the regional director, closed the door to David Simmons' office behind her, her expression a mix of disappointment and frustration. David sat at his desk, fidgeting nervously, still reeling from the confrontation. Karen wasted no time, her voice sharp and unwavering as she began. "David, do you have any idea who you were speaking to just now?" she asked, crossing her arms. David, attempting to maintain his composure, replied, "A client with a suspiciously large check. I was simply following protocol and verifying the funds." Karen's eyes narrowed, her tone turning icy. "Suspicious? That client, as you so dismissively put it, is Angela Carter. She's not just any client. She's the largest shareholder in this bank. She owns a controlling stake, David. Do you understand what that means?" David's face drained of color, and he stammered, I didn't know. There was no way for me to. You should have known, Karen interrupted sharply, slamming a folder onto his desk. Her account profile, her transaction history, her status within this bank, everything was in the system. But you didn't bother to check any of it, did you? You let your biases dictate your actions instead of relying on facts. David opened his mouth to respond, but Karen raised a hand, silencing him. This wasn't just a mistake, David. It was unprofessional, inappropriate, and completely unacceptable. You had all the documentation you needed to process her transaction, but instead, you chose to question her legitimacy, based on nothing more than your own assumptions. He slumped slightly in his chair, his voice barely audible. I thought I was being cautious. Karen scoffed. Cautious? No, David, you were being discriminatory. Angela Carter is one of the most influential people in this institution, and you treated her as if she didn't belong here. Do you have any idea how much damage you've done not just to your own career, but to the reputation of this branch and the entire bank? David's voice trembled as he tried to explain. I didn't mean for it to come across that way. I was just... Stop, Karen cut him off, her voice firm. Intentions don't matter here. What matters are your actions and the consequences. You not only disrespected one of our most important clients, but you also failed to uphold the standards of professionalism this bank expects from its employees. Karen leaned in, her gaze piercing. Angela Carter could have you removed from your position with a single phone call, David. And frankly, I wouldn't blame her if she did. You've put yourself and this branch in an untenable position, and it will not be overlooked. David sat in stunned silence as Karen straightened up and delivered her final words. There will be consequences for this, David, serious ones. For now, stay in your office and think about how you've jeopardized everything with your arrogance and bias. With that, Karen left, leaving David alone to confront the weight of his actions and the collapse of his career. Angela Carter, now seated in the bank's headquarters conference room, addressed the assembled leadership team with calm authority. The events of the previous day had exposed more than just an isolated incident of bias. It revealed systemic issues within the bank's operations. Angela, the largest shareholder and a leader committed to integrity, was determined to ensure such behavior would not recur. Yesterday's incident at your branch wasn't just a mistake, Angela began, her tone steady but firm. It was a symptom of a deeper problem within this institution. As the largest shareholder, I see it as my responsibility to address this issue head-on. She looked around the table, her sharp gaze meeting the eyes of each executive. This bank thrives on trust, the trust of our clients and the communities we serve. If we allow incidents like this to persist, that trust will erode, and with it, the reputation and success of this institution. Angela then laid out a series of proposals designed to create a culture of respect, inclusivity, and professionalism. First, I propose mandatory staff training on principles of inclusion and cultural competence. Every employee, from tellers to executives, must understand the importance of treating all clients with dignity and fairness. She continued, second, we need a comprehensive review of all internal procedures to identify and eliminate bias. This will ensure that every process is applied uniformly, without prejudice or personal judgment interfering. Finally, Angela concluded, third, we must establish an internal mechanism for handling complaints from both clients and employees. This system will provide a safe, confidential way for issues to be reported and addressed promptly. The room buzzed with murmured discussions as the leadership team absorbed her words. Karen Ellis, the regional director, was the first to speak. These measures are essential. We cannot afford to let incidents like this damage our reputation or the trust of our clients. Angela nodded, her expression resolute. Change starts now. These measures will be implemented within a month, and I will personally oversee their progress. We must set a standard of excellence for our clients, our staff, and our future. As Angela Carter prepared to leave the branch, she paused near the counter where Sarah, the young cashier who had tried to intervene during the earlier confrontation, was organizing documents. Noticing Angela, Sarah approached cautiously, her expression a mix of respect and hesitation. "Miss Carter?" Sarah said softly. "I just wanted to say it's good to see you again. I'm sorry about what happened earlier." Angela offered a warm smile, her composed demeanor unchanged. "Sarah, I noticed your efforts to step in and support me when it mattered. That kind of courage and integrity is rare, and it speaks volumes about your character." Sarah blushed at the unexpected compliment but nodded. "Thank you, Miss Carter. I was just doing what I thought was right." Angela's smile widened. "And that's precisely why I believe you have a bright future. If you're ever interested in advancing your career, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. This bank needs employees like you people, who stand for what's right." With those words, Angela turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high. Staff and clients watched in respectful silence as she departed, her confidence and authority leaving an indelible impression. Angela's actions symbolized more than personal victory. They marked the beginning of a cultural transformation within the bank. If you find this story interesting, please like and leave us a comment below to let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to watch the next video.